Okay. Yes. And you know what? She should be on here any minute now. She wants to wrap this up in 1 hour.
Okay, well, it's
So,
really vital information for everybody.
okay, let's see here. She's not on just yet, I don't think. Well, while we're waiting for Anna, is there anybody on the call that wants to open us up in a prayer? All right, is that someone's what do you think, the piano practice thing, whatever that thing is called, or is that a blinker
Sounds
on her
like a
car?
blinker.
Okay.
I'll lead us in prayer.
Awesome. Please go for it, Jason.
All right.
Oh, wait, you know what? Let me make sure.
What?
Someone hit the record button. I just want to make sure I'm also
You did
recording.
it. It's on.
Okay, good. All right, go ahead, Jason.
Heavenly Father, thank you for all the wonderful ways in which you blessed us throughout every day of our life. Thank you for the protection that we never see. Thank you for the grace that is bountiful. Thank you for the hope that you've always embedded within us. Thank you for our sovereignty. And as we all gather together tonight around this body of knowledge we'll share, may we take it, assimilate it, and share it to strengthen our brothers and sisters around this country. And as we move forward in our mission, may we let nothing stand in our way, because we understand that you are the one going before us. You are our strength. All you've asked us to do is stand in your presence and be humble and allow you to teach us and allow you to guide. And so may we have the eyes to see clearly and the ears to hear correctly as we move forward from this meeting this evening. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jason. Okay, what about a volunteer to do the Bivens?
This is Michael. I'll do it again if you'd like, Michelle. Hello.
I love it when you do the Bivens. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. Bivens versus 6 Unknown Agents, 403 US 388 from 1971. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at today's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Is there a response to the Bivens decision for the first time? For the second time? For the third time? Anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who's working for any foreign government, including territorial United States or municipal United States, anyone who is being paid or coerced to be here must fully disclose their presence and purpose now or leave this conference call. If they subsequently show up as federal witnesses, they are discredited for failure to disclose. Are you now, or have you ever received money or personal support of any kind from the intelligence community? Upon no response to this notice of the Bivens decision, this meeting shall now proceed. Thank you. I yield.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Okay, I don't see that Anna has hopped in yet. She should be here any minute. So she did ask that we wrap it up in 1 hour. And so I responded to her with that. If that's the case, I think we should focus on Q&A. I know she's been coughing and she's been having a difficult time with her voice. And so she actually requested 1 hour. So she should be on any minute now.
Michelle, may I?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to turn my camera off because we're having a little bandwidth issues. I just put in the chat the hotel contact, the cost of hotel for the American States Assembly family reunion in September. Right now, there are only 57 rooms left in the hotel. Everybody needs to get their hotel reservation and their deposit down. I mean, like ASAP. The season is open, okay? And we are working on some backup hotels. So, if everybody could, get on that this week and get some things done, they won't hold a room without a deposit. So they have to have a deposit. Right now I've got 172 people who've said they want to come with 80 actual bookings. So I'm counting that as 80 actual rooms. And if so, then we're going to have to find some rooms somewhere, right? So, you know, we can do that, but everybody's got to try to get in there and grab their rooms, okay?
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. And I hope everybody knows, I'm sure that they do because you've been talking about it, but just in case people are new and haven't heard yet, we're going to an island. And so it's imperative that if you're going to be coming to the trip and you want to be on the island, that, you know, instead of having to travel back and forth on a ferry or a boat or whatever, you're going to want to make sure that you get a hotel room. So I can proudly say my room is booked. Super excited.
You holding the bed for me, Michelle?
Okay, now, Jason.
May I, Michelle?
Yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if Lisa could just remind us of the name of the hotel. I'm sure it's been out there a bazillion times, but in light of my gratitude challenge that I put out there for the International Outreach Think Tank, I just wanted to say a great big thank you to Michelle for hosting these meetings with Anna, and thank you to Lisa for planning that wonderful family reunion for us out on Put-in-Bay. And I just want to say how much I appreciate all of you. And I love you. And I yield.
Thank you, Tammy. Love you too.
So the name of the hotel is the Put-in-Bay Resort and Conference Center. And like I said, I put it in the chat with the contact information and the website. It's up. It's a little bit up in the chat now, but it's there. So you can get those details. And then if anybody has any questions, they can email me. And I'll put my email in the chat. But you do need, it's really, that also happens to be a very busy weekend. They call it Bronco weekend. And so Bronco owners from all over the area and the country come in that weekend as well. So there will be all types of antique as well as current Broncos that will be on display and on parade that weekend. There's a whole bunch of things going on. So you know, that's why it's so imperative to go ahead and get your reservations in.
Thank you, Lisa. And Anna has joined us. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin Anna up to the front here. Hi, Anna, welcome. How's your voice doing? How are you doing? My goodness gracious. I'm not sure if she can hear me yet. There you are. Hello.
I think Harold managed to give me some cough drops of the right kind. It seems to be working.
Oh, good. Thank you, Harold, for doing that. That's awesome.
Sweet Harold. He's had so many different, you know, repercussions of his treatment so far. I have to tell you, I had no idea what he was in for in terms of, you know, just the continuing detoxification and rebuilding. It's been really fascinating, but I'll make a full report when we get a little bit further down the line on all that.
Well, good. And by the way, now you know, the obvious question is, tell us more about these cough drops real quick. What's the, because
they're Ricolas.
Okay.
Ricolas, and for some reason or other, they seem to have a less candy effect and a more mucus control or something. I don't know. They just seem to be working better.
So good. Well, we've got a bunch of hands up tonight, and I know you wanted to limit our call tonight to 1 hour, so we're gonna do that. If we can wrap it up by like by 6:30 California time, I think that'll be perfect. But Doug had a question. He wanted me to ask you if you could touch on your recent article regarding the Treasury. In fact, sorry, I have so many windows open. I'm trying to look for the title of the article. Doug, do you have the title of it in front of you?
It's probably the one that was just released, the IPN
Yep.
to all U.S. Treasury officers.
Yep.
Well, first of all, you have to understand that we have Treasury officers all over the freaking world. I mean, we tend to think of Treasury officers just being people working in the U.S. Treasury in the District of Columbia, right? Or maybe we might extend it to, IRS agents that are affiliated in some way with the Treasury, or Federal Reserve officials that are somehow affiliated, But we don't think about U.S. Treasury officials being all over the world. No. But they are. They are all over the world, literally. And so I'm not just addressing those in the United States there. I'm telling all of them that, hey, the game has been played, you lost, and guess what? It's time to move and to take the appropriate actions. And part and parcel, the reason that we do this and we issue these international public.
Anna, I'm so sorry. I accidentally muted you. I was trying to mute the blinker. Whoa. John, Michael, there we go. All right, go ahead, Anna. Sorry about that.
So the reason that we do this international public notice, and we directly address all these U.S. agents.
All right, someone's got their mic going. This is terrible.
That's John Michael. So
Michael.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Anna, go ahead.
What we do that for is to actually preempt them from having any plausible deniability. This is what they're always after, is plausible deniability. To say, oh, we didn't know, and so we did it this way in good faith and good service. No, we want to make it very clear that we don't intend to leave the old powers that be in control of our money. Everybody is jumping up and down, oh, the old control grid, all the evil black nobility, all these elites, all these people that have been in control all these years are on their way out the door. And all of the criminal malfeasance and bad behavior that have characterized their term is presumably on the way out. But what we see is that, okay, so the military that worked for them is supposedly cleaning up their employers, right? Okay, well, and they're impressing us with what? They're creating what? Why, they're creating an even more oppressive and more automated and more up-to-date control grid that they are in charge of. Well, that's just all well and good as long as, people of proper moral motivation and conscience are in control. But as we've seen before, such efforts have a way of going astray. And then you're left with some sort of a military government in charge of civilian affairs, and we're left with a situation where the solution could be considerably worse than the problem was before. Okay, so we want to preempt that. We want to call foul on it before it happens. We want to regain control by the civilian government, right? And we want to reclaim everything that's been stolen from us so that at least we have our own stuff as living people out of the slush pile of governments. Okay? So we're continuing to keep the pressure on them and to keep the spotlight on them and not let them get away with, you know, just walking in as the conquering heroes and having everybody just, you know, lay down and think this is wonderful when it isn't all that clear whether it's wonderful or some plot by the same wrongdoers to use military power to get rid of their political enemies, or if this is going to result in a control grid that is under the control of civilian governments, or if it's going to be a control grid under some sort of military hegemony, which could be much, much worse than anything we've ever seen. You know, what really does this portend? Right now, I can tell you that as of today, the 30 and 40-year bond market is non-existent. They had a sale at the Treasury for Treasury bonds, 30 and 40-year Treasury bonds, and there wasn't a single buyer. We haven't seen anything like that. We didn't even see anything like that in the depths of the Great Depression. This is you know, this is one of those moments in history when you kind of step back and go, this means that nobody has enough faith in this government, this current government, to believe that it's going to exist in 30 or 40 years, much less be able to pay the investment back with interest in 30 or 40 years. So this is a, you know, drawing your breath kind of moment in terms of the records being set. And it's also very telling that the bond market has a predictable effect on all the commodity markets. So what you're seeing in the bond market is going to be reflected in all of the valuations of, say, Fortune 500 companies. All this stuff is going to be affected, and not in a good sense. It's going to become a self-perpetuating kind of thing. It always does, where people get scared and they start milling around and you know, they take defensive actions that then ultimately lead to the self-fulfilling nightmare they didn't want. Okay, so this is not a good thing. And but on the other hand, viewed from another perspective, if you have a crooked system, a bad system, you want it to slow down to a point where you can actually make a transition without it being entirely disruptive. If you can slow things down enough, you can make that transition to a new system much easier. And, you know, that could be what's going on too, for all we know. It could be a totally planned part of a switchover to a new banking system, a new military enforced government system, and you know, it could just be a totally different world that's trying to crack open the egg. And it may not portend anything really about the the future of this country or the future of anything. It may just be a matter of resetting the old grid and the old currency for a new currency and all the rest of it that we can kind of see coming in terms of the military actions that have been undertaken.
Well, it definitely seems pretty suspicious that there were no takers on any of those bonds. And so thank you for sharing that with us today, because on the world stage, all the world's a stage, you know, you're the most credible, reliable source of information that we have at this point.
Oh yeah, everybody's lying to everybody else, and it takes more resources than the average person has to even get a balanced guess, you know? The situation in China continues to be totally mysterious. On one hand, we get all this media on these gigantic, I mean gigantic projects that the Chinese are supposedly doing or trying to do. And on the other hand, we get these, we get photographs of scalar weapons discharging in the atmosphere in China. And we get reports of the Chinese population dwindling like down to 300 million, less than the American population.
Wow, that's insane, because they have so much land.
And so many people.
Wow, so many people. Yeah.
You know, imagine your population going from 1.4 billion to 300 million, and what that would do to housing, real estate, trade, all forms of commerce. It would just basically empty your country out.
Yeah.
And one person would have 4 houses. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just unimaginable. And yet that appears to be what's happening. And the discharge of these scalar weapons is extremely, it's very, very concerning. We haven't seen anything like this on this planet since the days that our ancestors carved petroglyphs. Okay? We haven't seen this kind of action in 32,000 years.
And there's is there any possibility that any of that is, I don't want to say fake news, but is there, you know, is that verifiable? Are they really going from over a billion, 1 point whatever billion down to 300? Wow.
Well, you know, the Chinese Communist Party reports a lot of things. And their population has always been their crown jewel in terms of the labor force being their most valuable commodity. So they would have reason to lie and to exaggerate the number of Chinese, but 300 million?
Yeah, no.
So
yeah,
what do you come from that? Are they taking large percentages of their population out to locations where they're building these giant construction projects, like, you know, the Great Wall of China is dwarfed by this? Or are they just sending out fake news showing what they intended to build, but you know, can no longer build? And so they're just kind of keeping us distracted with all this hype. You know, where are all the people? And why are these scalar weapons being discharged? Exactly what kind of a scalar weapon is it? Now it has a very kind of signature discharge. All these scalar weapons have a visual display in the atmosphere that is characteristic of what kind of weapon it is. But, you know, I looked at this and it looks like an upside down horseshoe with a some kind of a center in the middle of the horseshoe. So it's basically this shape like a horseshoe in the sky that is being created by some sort of an electromagnetic generation, some kind of a scalar weapon that's discharging in the atmosphere in China. And these things in the past have done all sorts of different things. In the past, scalar weapons were used to modify the weather. They were used to do geoforming, where, you know, they would bring up a mountain or they would, you know, smash a mountain down, or they would, you know, push an island right into the sea, or, you know, things of that nature. Move ice caps, you know. These weapons were actually used for a lot of things. They weren't just weapons. And this, for all we know, this might not be being used as a weapon. It might be used for some other good purpose. We don't know. But we do know that it is a scalar technology. We do know that it has a characteristic discharge. We just don't happen to know what that particular discharge is affiliated with. And we don't know if this is killing people or if this is doing some terraforming on the land. And nobody seems to know. Nobody seems to bring forth any information. Nothing's getting out in the news from China. I mean, we've got some photographs. We've got, you know, plenty of on-site reports from individual Chinese people are getting out. We don't know how much of that is real and how much of that is staged. But according to these reports, there's nobody on the streets. Nobody is going shopping. Nobody is going out at night. Nobody is around, period, at all. Now, you know, one of the wackier things I've heard discussed is a theory that when they injected everyone, or nearly everyone, with all of these chemicals, that they turned into transmitters. Well, we know that that is true. We know that people that were injected with the COVID-19 vaccine actually began transmitting as if they were cell phones. And there were plenty of experiments and plenty of results with people just using their cell phones, wandering around the cemeteries, picking up on all these cell phone signals coming from the graves. And so the only thing that could be would be some sort of a, number one, a transmitter system that was embedded in the bodies. And also then it would have to be a Wi-Fi type thing that could charge through the air, because otherwise when the body died, the transmitter would go off, right?
Right.
So these long-term transmitters, coming from the graves of all the COVID victims, really makes you stop and wonder, what the hell? I mean, it makes sense for a tracking device for the living, you know, to keep track of Joe Blow as he goes about his day, but it doesn't make any sense to keep track of the dead, does it?
No, it really doesn't, especially because they're buried.
Right.
So
they're buried or they're burned. So I mean, you know, what's going on here?
Unless they're acting in some way as like antenna or repeater, you know, they're helping to keep the consistency of the signal going. It might be that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is that possibility. There's also the possibility that there's some longer term use envisioned. You know, that their DNA is being salvaged for some purpose later to be dug up and you know, employed. We do know that in the early 1800s there was a cataclysmic, you know, pretty much a worldwide attack that is known as the mud flood, right?
Yeah.
That was caused by a gigantic earthquake. And I always think about the earthquake that was foretold in the Bible. You know, the great shaking of the earth that would result in everybody being, you know, astonished, because it was such a great earthquake. It's never been experienced before, right? Something way off the scale. Well, the mud flood that happened in the early 1800s looks exactly like that. It displaced unimaginable amounts, millions upon millions upon millions of tons of mud. And what happens during an earthquake is a phenomenon called liquefaction. And the actual ground, which seems so solid to us, is shaken so hard and at such a high vibration that it breaks apart and it liquefies. It becomes extremely like quicksand. It becomes very, very sloppy and porous and liquid, okay? And then when it stops shaking, it all forms up again, okay? And we have lots of evidence that that exact kind of liquefaction event happened all over the world, on the land and at sea, about 250 years ago, mostly about 200, around 1800. And then we have all this weird, eerie information coming back at us about the quote-unquote Cabbage Patch Kids. And we have all of these weird black and white postcards that appear to be incubation farms for clones. You know, that people were just randomly being cloned and literally grown as cabbage, you know, like vegetables, okay? This is something so bizarre. You know, I think we've all grown up with the Cabbage Patch Kids, right? And we've all had seniors tell us when we were young, told, oh, you came from a cabbage patch. And we never thought anything much of this because it was, you know, just one of those things like the stork bringing you, right? But what if not so long ago, in certain parts of the world, maybe here, there were cloning experiments and actual cloning programs designed to repopulate the planet with individuals that had superior genetics. You know, would the eugenists that we know stop a moment to kill off a large percentage of the population and select among them those individuals that they thought were worth cloning, and then use the DNA from the victims to spawn, you know, multiple copies? This kind of weird stuff is there's evidence for it. And, you know, it's kind of weird to even think about, but there's really evidence for it in the records.
Yeah, and what you were saying about all those Cabbage Patch Kids, you know, they had these incubators at the World Fair and all these different, like a traveling road show, and all these kids in these, you know, incubators, and they were like selling off or perhaps giving away kids. So there's definitely some questions about that whole topic.
Well, yeah, that whole time period. And we had all these orphanages. We had thousands of giant orphanages all over the place. And then a lot of them were later converted into insane asylums. And then suddenly all of the occupants of the insane asylums seemed to die off en masse. And we were left with all these large buildings just sort of sitting there empty with no purpose. You know, so how do you explain the need for all of these immense orphanages followed by the need for these insane asylums? You know, was it they were putting anybody who remembered and talked about the prior, you know, prior to the great earthquake, the mud flood, were they putting them away as insane people? Had they, when they did their cloning operation, did a certain percentage of the clones turn out to be mentally unstable? You know, we don't know, but we know for a fact that this happened all over the world, and that there were gigantic orphanages and gigantic insane asylums that suddenly went completely empty around 1910, 1920.
Wow. There are so many unanswered questions.
Right. And you know, we've been just going along, living our lives, do, and we haven't been asking, but we really need to wake up and start looking.
Well,
and perhaps all this Chinese merit system and tracking and surveillance is simply to identify those of us who are looking.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, who's grabbing the curtain to expose the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, all 220 of us on this call are doing that. The toothpaste is out of the tube. They can't put it back in.
I was talking to someone about the quotes from Colonel Mandel House, who wasn't a colonel, and his comment that not 1 in a million would be able to discern their subterfuge. Well, there's a whole lot more than 1 million now.
That's right. Yeah.
And we're even getting enough traction to get rid of the various corporations, the U.S. corporations that were named after us. Anyone touches that anymore and they are up for a felony conviction. So the word is slowly getting out, but it is getting out there, and you'll see less and less references to any kind of a municipal entity anymore.
Great. Because we need all hands, well, not all hands on deck, but you know what? We need everybody to step up and do their part and organize locally and just get this done. No more keeping our eyes on, you know, things that are so far outside of our control. If we stick to our own jurisdictions, we can get this done. And by the way, Anna, I don't mean to switch gears on you here, but we do have a number of hands up. We've got 9 people that have questions for you, and you want to hop off. So, all right, Nancy on Texas, go ahead, Nancy, you're first.
Actually, Denise was first.
Uh-oh.
Okay, on my screen, it's got you first, and Denise is a few down, but go ahead, Nancy.
Okay. So I have some questions in regards to your article about the in-house nonsense, where you talked about the recording secretaries. So the recording secretary, at least from what I understand, is an elected position, right? So if they don't show up, they don't turn in any reports, they aren't doing anything, they haven't turned in all the physical files or the digital files over to the assembly, isn't that abandonment of that position like any other elected official if they just decided not to come back? And I just want some clarification because we do have 2 recording secretaries who've not done any of that in over a year. And we really haven't addressed it. So this article yesterday, I guess, who's going to be because I have written down here on March 13th, 2025, you said we could remove recording secretaries. And then this in-house nonsense, it sounds like, well, once they're a recording secretary, you can't remove them. If they leave the assembly, they could go start their own little paper and up service and use the seals and the stamps. I'm just
look, there's a lot of confusion about recording secretaries and recording functions, and especially functions that are associated with our efforts to, you know, document our political status correction. Okay, and as we've gone along here, it's become more hidebound and bureaucratized by the moment, where, you know, it's gotten down to if you don't have seals and all this stuff as if you were a notary, then you couldn't possibly be providing a valid recording assistance, or you can't do recorder work and not be affiliated with an LRO. And there's all this mystique gathering around recording, and there shouldn't be, okay? What's important is that an individual makes a clear written declaration in a public venue, a public medium, that creates a permanent public record, or at least a substantially permanent public record. For example, you could publish your declaration and declare yourself an American born in Peoria, Illinois, and choosing to live your life as an American on California, and just put it in the newspaper. And you would have accomplished the fundamental thing that you have to accomplish, and that is to create a public record of your choice of political status. And really, that's all that needs to happen in order for a court or any government official to be properly apprised of your political choices and your political identity, okay? And, you know, a newspaper doesn't have any seals. It doesn't have any symbols, signs, or offices associated with any assembly, but it does create a public record. All right, so the recording function is not necessarily something that belongs just to an assembly. It doesn't actually. You know, we have plenty of state recording offices that are still open, and the state land recording offices are, you know, they create a public record that's durable. And if you've done a 928 process through a state or county of recorder's service, your public record is just as viable and just as official, and you know, it can stand just as well as anything published in a newspaper or by an LRO. Okay, we've had a lot of kind of friction about this, and I'm not exactly sure why it's rearing its ugly head right now, but people can set up services, and, you know, of course, we want to make sure that those services are not fly-by-night. We want to make sure that those services understand at least the minimum requirements of documentation to actually provide the desired result. We do want to, you know, provide a worthy service, but there are all sorts of worthy services possible. You have to remember that when we started all of this, we were living in a world in which the only international land recording offices that were generally available to the public were the state land recording offices. And they were set up as a means to grab property and put them in the British title system, okay? But nonetheless, they did provide a place where you could go and you could record your status correction, and it would create a public record. All right? But when we began this, those state recording offices were shutting down. And even the county level recording offices were shutting down all over this country. And in Europe, it had already happened. In England, there was exactly one recording office left open, and it wasn't called a recording office. It wasn't about land recording, at least not, you know, in an obvious way. And it was basically only used by the government. It wasn't, you know, it was open to the public, but the public couldn't find it, and the public was obviously not the anticipated user. So, you know, your options for being able to establish a proper permanent record of your political status have greatly improved as a result of our efforts, as a result of the LRO, as a result of the LRS, as a result of the LRPS that Global Family provides. And now we have another service which is a little bit different because it's really geared toward publishing land patent claims and not so much geared toward status correction, but the bucolic law organization has set up a platform for publishing land patents. And of course, in order to own land and to secure a land patent properly, you have to be an American who has corrected your political status. So they will be doing some status corrections for people who haven't already conveyed at the moment they walk through the door and attempt to set up a claim for their land patent. Well, this has stimulated all sorts of questions and controversies, and people wondering, do they have to go through the LRO? No. What about the bank? Do they have to go through the bank? Only if they want to establish a bank account. All these different things where people are confused about, where are the official powers or authorities, okay? Well, I hate to tell everyone, but we want as many different kinds of land recording platforms as we can get. Number one, because we're going to need all the extra help. But number two, so that we have a way for people. I'm in the middle of a teleconference. I can't stop. I know. So the problem of the recorders is really the problem of the recording platform. The LRO is one kind of a recording platform, and it's a very good one. And, it's stable and it's been well developed to this point. So, I feel good about that. The state-of-state recording option remains. It's not as easily accessible, and there's not as many of them as there once was, but state-of-state recording offices and county of recording offices are still a way of establishing a quasi-permanent record, right? And newspapers still abound, and you can still publish your declaration of your political status or your intent in a newspaper, and that will give you a public record. So it's possible to establish your political correction, your political status correction, without even using a recording secretary. And that record can stand and be as valid as anything that we produce in any of our platforms and systems. But in terms of your direct question, Nancy, yes, you can get rid of a recording secretary that doesn't work as a recording secretary for your LRO. But the other thing is that traditionally, state recorders may be elected, but recording secretaries tend to be appointed. They're not even elected.
Okay, so on our assembly, they've been elected, and my concern was just, the way the article read, it just sounded like we could never, once we brought on a recording secretary, we couldn't remove them either from, because they aren't doing any work. They've retained all the physical records and the digital records, and they haven't returned any of their seals and stamps, which were issued by the assembly. And my concern was at that point, if we can't remove them, you know, I always thought being a recording secretary was a pretty darn special thing, and that there was a lot of fiduciary responsibility with that. So that's just really what I wanted to be clear on.
Sure, you can fire them for cause. You know, you can say you're no longer affiliated with the Texas Assembly, and we demand the return of our records and our you know, our stamps. These are records that belong to the Texas Assembly. They don't belong to you. So return them, or, you know, we'll report you for theft.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna, for your time. I yield.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, next up, we've got Rocky on Nevada. Go ahead, Rocky.
Hello there, Anna.
Hi.
My question is, like right now, all of the state assemblies are recognized by the Federation, and we all know that. How does the counties if they're starting to assemble and starting to get recognized, how do they get recognized with the Federation and be the official government body politics of those counties? So how do we know that they're recognized by the Federation?
Well, the people who live in the counties are the government.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for the government's instrumentalities. It's for the people to organize and put together their county government, and to inform us that they're there. You know, and after that, we don't need to know much about the counties. The counties have their own jurisdiction, the soil jurisdiction, and so they control their living fate, if you will. Mm-hmm. And the counties taken together create the Union State, which of course is the one of the international instrumentalities. But anyway, when you have the Union State, that's all these populated counties in control of the national soil jurisdiction, you are actually dealing at the level of the sovereign nation state. Okay? So it's not the same as the state assembly. The process and the jurisdiction is different. And you know, when we go out to visit you know, county assemblies, we're entering their territory. We're entering their space. Mm-hmm. They're telling us what they need and want, and you know, what struggles and difficulties and concerns they may have in the international venue. You know, they can talk to us about, we don't approve of what Israel's doing, or we do approve of what Israel's doing, you know, all those international things. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the counties are operating in a different jurisdiction than we are, and in a different jurisdiction than the state assembly is. And they have their own peculiar struggles and powers and issues. Mm-hmm. We haven't spent a great deal of time or effort on, you know, directly talking about county assemblies, and I realize that leaves everybody somewhat in the lurch as they're beginning to grapple with that development. But suffice it to say, the county assemblies are the ultimate backbone of America. Mm-hmm. And we can't survive without them.
Right. I believe that, you know, the state is stronger when the counties are stronger too. Right. And we need to get them all assembling and you know, doing their thing in each county, you know, because each county is different and each county has their own issues, and we need to support that, whatever it is. Yeah. Right. And the way I look at it, as long as they've done their political status and they're doing all the right things and they're standing up, then I would assume they would be recognized.
Yes. Yeah, well, right. And, you know, everything that we're doing right now is kind of upside down and backward.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been living in a world that was mirrored. And, they have kind of thrown us into a situation where everything has been controlled from the top downward, and the political machinery is such as that everybody at the bottom of the pyramid has been bought off,
Mm-hmm.
With block grants and that kind of payola coming from the quote unquote federal government. But that's not our government.
Right.
Our government is the inverted pyramid where it's all coming down, right?
Right.
And so it's not so much us recognizing the counties as the counties recognizing all of us.
Right.
Because ultimately the counties are the bedrock that gives rise to the states and the international organizations and everything else.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. The last thing I have is I told you about getting more coordinators in Nevada, and I sent tomorrow, once she stood up, she wants to be one. She also wants to be a recording secretary. She sent Terry information on doing it, and she didn't get any response. So then she sent it to you. And like I said before, this shouldn't be this hard to get somebody to be recognized as something. And also, like we're talking about recording secretaries, we have even a couple other ones that we can't get them on the LRO, and we can't get their, the equipment they need to actually record people. Because, like even Tamara, she's been doing paperwork for people, but she has to go to Aaron to get them recorded because she can't get access. You know what I'm saying? And I want to know, what can we do, or if I need to help somehow, what can I do to help this?
We're all in kind of a crazy situation as we're wearing two hats at once.
Mm-hmm.
We're automatically members of a county assembly, and we're always, then part of a state assembly. So when you're making this offer to serve as a recording secretary or as a coordinator, it's important to put on your state hat and say, well, I live on this county in this state, and I want to act as a state recording secretary. Okay. I want to act as a state coordinator. I want to receive the training, the vetting, and do the whole deal. That's great. That's fine. That's what we want. We want people to step forward as ASNs and take up the torch and lead the charge. Go out there and help people get their status corrected. Go out there and serve as a organizer in your part of the state, and that's all great. But make sure that Terry knows that you're coming at this wearing your state assembly hat, and you want to serve in a state capacity, because if she gets something from a county assembly, it's going to make her head kind of go,
yeah. She wants to be a state coordinator. She's in a small county, and I think it would be good because we would, be able to learn stuff from the smaller counties too, right? Yeah, and she would actually be able to help in other areas that we don't know. You know what I'm saying? And so she agreed, and she wanted to do it. As she stood up as a coordinator, state coordinator, she also wanted to do the recording because a lot of people in her county need recorded, and she wanted to help them, right? So the deal is we're having an issue of getting those procedures done so that she can fully stand up. I recognize her as a coordinator, and I'm working with her. So the deal is we got to get the Federation or whoever to actually recognize her too.
Yeah, well, it comes down to, working at a state level for her. And it really helps if we can keep our hats straight,
True.
And as I explained last week, I think it was one of the biggest challenges that we face is that we have people in these very urban areas, and then we have people in these very rural areas, and some counties are overflowing with population, and other counties have very limited population. If you have coordinators spread out all over the state, you can serve all those different populations, and you can get feedback to the state level of all the different needs. And you know, it's just a great advantage to have a whole grid work of coordinators all over the state who are getting together as coordinators and talking about what they're experiencing in their county and their region, you know, their little, say 5 or 6 county area where they're working. So we want to get that kind of spread, and we want to get that kind of teamwork going, so that, you know, we get away from the top-down structure parameters, and we expand the input coming in from the people. Because I don't know, no matter how well-intentioned, no matter how hard you work, you take one coordinator and set them down in the middle of something as big as California, and there is absolutely no freaking way that you are getting the kind of expansion and coordination. And, you know, you need a coordinator team. And, you know, in sparsely populated states like Wyoming, you need a coordinator team, because if nothing else, you got the sheep farmers on that side, and you got the cow farmers on the other side, and you have all these different natural resources that you have to manage. So, you know, you need people.
Yeah, the way I look at it is we all need help, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, I always have the saying, 2 heads are better than one, you know what I'm saying? So the more that we can get and the more information we can get, we can do a better job, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it goes for all the states. If they have a coordinator team and they got people spread out all over the state, and those people are talking about, you know, what's going on in their corner, it just makes it easier to really come to grips with the issues that your state is facing. It makes it easier to organize your people. It makes it easier for everybody to get the same information at the same time. I mean, there's just a whole lot of benefit to having a team of coordinators. And the same goes for having, you know, a grid of recording secretaries. I mean, we've had situations to this day where if you were to actually have to go to see a recording secretary, you might have to travel an hour or more just to get to a recording secretary who would have all the bells and whistles to record your claim. Well, what if you're sick?
Right.
What if you're in the middle of a blizzard and you have an urgent need to correct your political status? You know, so it's always good to have more people trained and have more people active, more people contributing back their feedback. That's, you know, that's what we need and want, is more people.
Okay. Well, with that said, yeah, I'm going to yield, but if you can try to help me get whatever I need to get these people, I'd appreciate it. Sure. I mean, it's, I don't care how it comes, but I'd like to get it moving so that we can get moving. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
I think it just needs to be kind of recast. This isn't coming as a county assembly thing. This is coming as a Nevada thing, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I yield.
Thank you, Rocky. Okay, next up we have Mike, and I just want to point out that we only have about 10 minutes left in the meeting. So let's go ahead, and if we can keep our questions succinct, that would be awesome. Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, forgot to unmute. Yeah, I just wanted to find out if there's been any information on the release of the Trump going to the World Court, or if there might be something that we could find to show what's happened, that the maybe go to Chief Fast Horse and have him do an affidavit. I'm just trying to go back, and we have such a shotgun effect of everything that I'd like to put some critical pieces together and make that available for people, because we can't really build our county till we get more than just my wife and I. I yield.
Well, they have not published the results, the determinations that were verbally expressed. that I know of. I talked to Chief Fast Horse last week, and he was going through some medical issues, so he was not exactly as forthcoming and talkative as he normally is, and I could tell he was tired and in pain, so I didn't want to press him, but I do have contacts with him and his office, and I'll try to find out what the status is and how much has come out and how much hasn't. But bear in mind that Trump does not necessarily recognize the World Court as any kind of authority. It's more like if they give him the answer he wants, he'll use that as a talking point and a source of authority for doing what he wants to do. If they don't agree with him and they turn down his proposition, then his tendency is to, go home and immediately start action in a different jurisdiction. So, he's kind of a wild card in terms of what he does with being turned down in a court case. But I guess you could say he selects with what court decision he obeys court decisions he likes and disobeys and disregards court decisions he doesn't like. So I expect that he'll just go home, regroup, and continue to operate in the territorial jurisdiction however he wants. But I think that it's telling that the come on, puppy. Sorry, my puppy is very gets very loud.
That's all right.
But anyway, the decision was made, and it gives us leverage in that jurisdiction. Okay, it gives us power in that jurisdiction, and I think that that's important because it brings world opinion to bear on the situation that we face after 160 years of basically being misled and cheated by our public employees.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. And along the same lines, I found a gem going through. I always thought that the land, air, water thing was back to the unum sanctum, but in an older article, you mentioned the Treaty of Trieste, I think, just outside of Italy, and became part of Italy. And I was wondering if you Google it, and all you find is things for 1945 and newer. But do you have the original documents, or is there some way we could get more information on that?
Well, that's some real digging, because again, you're talking about things that were conceived in France back in the Middle Ages, and it's all in Old French. So even if you had it, you couldn't read it. Not without a lot of work, a lot of study on your part. Even the letter forms are different, but they do have translations that are available in archives in big libraries. You'd have to go to a really substantial library system to find the treaties of Trieste going back to the 1100s. Something like, public libraries in England that are large, that have interlibrary loan capabilities, or that have the ability to do PDFs of actual documents, that they can send out. That's a tough one. The land, air, water structure was kind of I guess you could say, an extrapolation of the world around us. People looked around and realized that, you know, the issues of the air, energy, thought, feeling, and the business and everything that's associated with that is different from the experiences that you have at sea, and what goes on at sea is different from what goes on the land. So I think they just use that in a very commonsensical way as an organizational tool based on nature itself to organize the law. And that's what the, you know, the Italian councils came up with. It wasn't necessarily just the church. It was an entire group of nations that accepted this proposal in terms of setting up the jurisdictions that we're familiar with today.
Gotcha. Thanks. I yield.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, next up, Denise.
Thanks a lot, Michelle. So just real quick, Anna, I know you about 3 weeks ago, you asked me to email you for an appointment. Did you want to just make an appointment now, or should I just email you again?
For the past 3 weeks, I've had about probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 emails. I've been swamped. So if at first you don't succeed, you can always text me.
Okay, I'll text you. That sounds great. And then the next question, I mean, I've had over 100 assembly members weigh in on this. The 5,000 that we're getting, that Trump's offering, he's kind of offering it as a sort of like oh, we saved so much money on Doge, here it is. I mean, the GOP's inundating me, it's inundating other people, even though we're not even on it anymore. And they're claiming that it's a Doge savings check. So it's kind of like the fake Nasara thing going on. And I know in February, this similar thing came along where Trump was giving $2,500 per person. And you said, if you get the check to write accepted for value and it goes towards what I am owed, you said you could accept it.
Yeah,
right.
basically.
But what about this $5,000? Because this would be like the final settlement of the IRS.
Is that what they're advertising, that Doge took down the IRS and here's your $5,000 from that?
Well, I have a couple text messages. Other people have sent me theirs. The flavor of them is Doge did such a great job. We're giving you some of that money, or Doge is sending you a check.
Okay, well, yeah. Anytime that Uncle Sam offers you a check, especially any windfall money that just falls out of the sky, you have to be careful about it, because they can use your acceptance of that money and claim that it's settlement of a claim, maybe their entire claim against their corporation.
Right.
And at the same time, I know that people are really hurting out there.
Yes.
And, you know, could use $5,000, you know, just to make up for the food costs, the inflation, right? So the way to do that and still maintain your claim against them for additional remuneration and restitution is to put a limitation on the acceptance. And so you would accept it in partial payment, you know, and then, you know, just have that on the check near the endorsement, before the endorsement, you know, on top and the endorsement underneath, so that you can accept that as a partial payment of what you're owed, because at this point you don't know what the ultimate restitution is, and they are already they've already done some dirty deals like that. Like they did that in North Carolina. They came through and
the $750.
Yeah, gave that piddly little $750 thing, and then wrote off that whole thing. And you continue to see examples of that in the operations. I'm not accusing Donald Trump of doing that, at least not yet. I haven't really seen that kind of intent or application. But still, it's best to be safe than sorry. And, you know, just keep a copy of how you endorse that check. So if a question comes up later, you can say, see, I accepted it as partial payment, not total settlement.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I yield. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, Denise. All right, Anna, just giving you we're at the hour mark from when we're a little over. It's like an hour, 5 minutes since when you hopped on. Do you want to go ahead and should we wrap it up?
Could we take a couple more quick questions if people have
sure
questions? Because I feel bad, you know,
Oh, may I?
We've got Mary next. Go ahead, Mary.
Hello, Anna. Thank you for being with us tonight. I had actually 9 questions, so I will ask one and observe everybody else's time too, okay? So in the recent article that you wrote, In-House Nonsense, you state that a coordinator, and I quote, can even serve on committees and act as committee chairpersons like any other ASN, end quote. However, according to the How to Build an Assembly Handbook, Section 11, and everything I have ever learned thus far, committee chairs have to be filled with a state citizen. Is it now true that an ASN can be a chair of any committee other than the International Business Assembly?
Right. Yeah, there are committees that have to be chaired by American state citizens. Okay, the committees of the International Business Assembly have to be chaired by ASCs, and the committees have to be primarily populated by ASCs. Doesn't mean that ASNs can't visit and can't do reports and that sort of thing.
Sure.
But the International Business Assembly is the province of the state citizens. And so naturally ASNs can't serve those committees, right? Right. All right, but I don't know where this idea comes from. You know, maybe there's something in the handbook that's misleading or misstated, because that is an exception. But generally speaking, an ASN can be the chairman of any. They can be a chairman for a militia committee, for a General Assembly committee, for you know, a Jural Assembly committee. There's nothing really stopping them from doing, you know, anything except the International Business Assembly.
Then we need to get that fixed in many, many sections of How to Build an Assembly Handbook, because there's a plethora of places within there where, you know, it has to be a state citizen for this and a state citizen for that. The banking committee is supposed to be all state citizens, and the chair has to be a state citizen.
That may be Terry's, you know, takeaway on that subject, but no, that's not what I've said about it.
Would you be okay if I sent you the ones that I found that I think are a discrepancy from what you've said prior? And would you please correct it, at least for me, so I'm giving Minnesota the right information?
Well, it's probably just a, you know, I could have been talking about the International Business Assembly, and of course I would be saying, yeah, all those guys have to be ASCs, right?
Right.
And then that could have been extrapolated and generalized.
Okay.
Okay, so those things happen. But no, ASNs are the backbone of the General Assembly, the Jural Assembly, and the militia. And, you know, the only reason that you have a set aside, sure, if you have state assembly, if you have a plethora of American state citizens in your assembly, there's nothing against them taking the chairmanship of any committee, right?
Right.
But most of our state assemblies are in the opposite situation, where they don't have that many ASCs who, number one, are eligible, and number two, willing to serve. And those people would very quickly get burdened down to an unreasonable extent, trying to chair all these committees and keep everything rolling. So if it were limited to just ASCs for committee chairmanships, we'd all be in a world of hurt rather quickly. So I would like to get that straightened out and corrected.
Okay, awesome. I'll send you the rest of my questions then and yield for somebody else. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, Jeffrey.
Hi, folks. Hey, Anna. Hey, I got for you tonight. Can prisoners in a federal or state prison be status corrected while under disability of duration?
Yes. If we've got people that can get to them and talk to them, you know, visit them, go get them to sign the paperwork while they're in jail, there's no reason why they can't be status corrected while in jail. The problem is that doing your status correction while you're in jail for something you've already been convicted of doesn't change the conviction in and of itself. It just kind of gives you the peace of mind of knowing that you've got it straight, and when you walk out those doors, you're going to be in a different status, and you're going to be able to get your account at the bank, and you're going to be able to have a different life.
Well, Anna, would they be able to do the banking while they're in jail if they could get someone to manage that?
Well, that's a good question. I don't really know the answer to what GFG would say about it. In theory, you know, if they could arrange the outside help, they could get something established. I don't see why there's any real big question, especially if you take it to an LRO and work with a recording secretary. Incarceration is, as you say, a disability. They can't get around and do these things for themselves. But if they sign off on the declaration, which you can do in most circumstances, you know, with someone who's in jail, and you get 2 witnesses who will stand up for them, then you can, I would think, go the rest of the way and get an account set up for them, even though they couldn't access it until they got out. But that would give them, you know, a starting base. It would give them a grub stake. They wouldn't just be walking out the doors of the prison like Chief Fast Horse did in prison fatigues and size 13 slippers in the middle of, I think it was 30 degrees when they showed him the door. Anyway, there are a lot of terrible things that happen to our guys when they're in jail, and if we could do that for them, I think that'd be wonderful.
All right, well, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Jeffrey. All right, Annette. Anna, we're down to the last 3. Go, Annette.
I thank you so much. What a great group of letters that you put out this week, and all of us in the gray zone. Thank you so much for your time. My question is about our businesses on our county, asking if they will be, you know, getting in trouble for going on the vendors and creating a vendor account and not going through, on our state, it's called Sunbiz, to collect tax. So can they be held, you know, and taken to jail or whatever for not collecting tax if they're recognized on Global rather than Sunbiz?
Well, if you were, it's like the physicians. If you're a physician and you post a disclaimer in your office telling federal employees and dependents that they accept service at their own risk, or that this practice is not intended for federal employees or dependents, or some, you know, do a disclaimer so you make it clear that you're a private physician, you're not a medical doctor. If you don't use the license, then it's the same way with the businesses. If they are a vendor with global and they're interacting with us as Americans through the global vendor system, then they're fine and good. It's the other side that has this tax collection fetish. We don't need or want tax collection. We want to get rid of all taxes. So it's like with us, you have a whole different world where there are no taxes. We don't collect taxes. We're not dependent on taxes. And so they can just come over to our side and deal with our people and avoid all of that, or they can continue to provide services and deal with customers outside our system, in which case they have to collect taxes on those transactions. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And man, that's a beautiful world you're describing. I just have a bunch that are kind of worried about, you know, the tax guy coming around and saying, hey, what are you doing? So I want to thank you for your clarity. And you have a beautiful day. I'll let you get to the last question. And again, Michelle, Anna, thank you so much.
Michelle, may I, Michelle?
Thank you, Annette. Gregory, we have one more in front of you. Is there a reason why you want to jump the line?
It's about taxes, but you know what? As long as Anna's still here, I'm Gregory Soderlin and yeah, you handle them and I'll.
Thank you, Gregory. Go ahead, Jocelyn.
Hi, I hope my audio is okay. I'm on my laptop. The only reason I raised my hand, hi Anna, is Jocelyn on Colorado, is because I wanted to tell Anna that I came across this information that apparently Putin released the Tartarian archive files very recently. I'm talking like 3 months ago or something. I'm looking more into it, but I know exactly what you're talking about. And I feel like moving forward, you should just say a lot more. And we should talk about Tartaria and why all these amazing buildings that these people made with their minds are all around us and why we can't just go ahead and make things with our minds like they did. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Anna. Love you.
Well, I would love to learn more about Tartaria. It's a fascinating subject, and you're right. We need to understand better what our own history is.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. All right, Gregory, you're up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Anna. Very nice to talk to you. I've been, like many of us, have been following you for many years and listening intently. And anyway, I have a couple things. I think what we can do, I just want to put this out to all the assembly that the summer's coming up, and then I'm in San Diego, so sunny Southern California, and we have these events that are just you know, at the beaches, and what we can do is put our own kiosk up there and you know, just start to reach out to people, and we can do a banner that says, oh, do you want to pay taxes anymore? Do you know where your taxes go?
Yeah.
Right, and all that stuff. So we can reach out and stuff like that. I also want to put out to all the assembly, all the members here, to put to archive all your meetings on all states. So I'm going to put a proposal to the California Assembly about running my own server, because I'm a computer engineer and I want to run my own server and start to bring all this California Assembly meetings and actually take that locally here and upload it to a data center. So this data center is not online; it's a private, and upload it, because I think all these meetings are so powerful. We need an archive of all this stuff, and what we need to do is we need to collect all this stuff. Everybody in all states need to collect their stuff, and we need to start archiving it. So anyway, so that being said, my question is, I don't even know why I didn't consider it before, but I can get all my I can get all my federal taxes and state taxes I've ever paid back. And what I can do with that money is I can get an office, and I can hire like college students, like 10 or 15 college students to staff the office, maybe an office manager, and I can start to run assembly business right in San Diego County, right? And everybody can do this in every county. So I'm just going to explore that. So I'm going to put a shout out to Doug Minnick on San Diego. We need about 10 Doug Minnicks on every county in this land, right? We need what do we got? 3,000 counties here? All right. Shout out to Doug Minnick. But it came up on due process today with Christy Leeper and Doug Minnick. And if everybody look at that, that's a great, powerful meeting. And you can go to the DMS server and download those stuff, and all those meetings are there. And anyway, so my question to Anna is, if I'm not mistaken, can we not get all the taxes we paid back, and then we can use this to as us individuals use that to administrate what we need to do? And I yield.
Well, in theory, you're correct. Getting blood out of a turnip might be rather difficult. I think that the restitution on all that comes more from recovering our assets and our credit than it does from a direct return from the agency, for example. And also, I have to raise one kind of warning shot here is whenever you work for the federal government, or you work for a corporation that is working for the federal government, there's a presumption that you owe federal taxes. And so, for example, guys in the military, they had taxes taken out of their pay, right? And, later on, they're going to be looking at a portion of their wages, their lifetime earnings. Part of their wages will always have that federal employment while they were in the military. If you work for the post office, that's always going to show as federal wages, right? And they can tax federal wages. I don't agree with the practice. I think that if it were seriously challenged at all, it would be found to be criminal. Because they're basically requiring a payroll kickback tax. And if payroll, if kickbacks are illegal, then why should they have a kickback tax on your payroll, on your pay? So that you're basically paying back 30% or 40% of your earnings to the employer as a condition of employment. That's crazy. And it strikes me that it has to be illegal. In the modern era, it has to be illegal because it's a form of peonage. But, people aren't challenging it in court. They should, but they don't. And really, they shouldn't have to. They should just be able to bring out the law and, okay, 1926, all of the countries that were, parties to this declared this illegal, unlawful, it's been outlawed. Peonage and slavery have both been outlawed worldwide since 1926. And that is the law for people, right? Well, so now we're claiming our status as people, duh. That should apply to each and every one of us. And it should also apply to our protected persons. Because remember, it's the duty under the Constitution to protect our persons. Just for fun, drag up Article 4 and take a real good look at what you, as an American, are owed in terms of service. And, the Constitutions, we often talk about them when we say, oh, well, I got the right to free speech and I got the right to freedom of religion. And, we run down the top 4 or 5 different things from the Bill of Rights and think that that's that. But no, it's a service contract, and there are all sorts of services built into those first few articles. And please bear in mind that the articles are the backbone of the Constitution. People get lost in the amendments. It's the articles that take precedent. The articles are the meat, and all the rest is condiments and add-ons and spices, okay? So when you're reading the constitutions, pay attention to those first articles, because that's what really counts. And in those articles, especially Article 4, you'll see a rundown of what these blighters actually owe you in terms of services, and protection of your persons, plural, is one of them.
May I? So
Sure.
I would present this, that the 14th Amendment and beyond are not, they were never lawfully ratified by a lawful Congress. So I believe it's the 16th Amendment where personal income tax is put in place.
Right.
So what you could do is default them. We could all default them and say, hey, I don't owe you that, and you better pay me all my money back. And so my point is, we're going to take that money back, which everybody on this call has probably paid 50,000 at a minimum to 100,000 in that, and then we can have a little pocket change before GFG Bank gets put in place, and we can hire college students and do our business. And I yield.
I think you're going to be very pleasantly surprised at the success that the GFG Bank has had, and how much we've been able to recoup already. You know, it'll be a while before we get down to the level of, you know, taking back from the IRS or taking back from the Social Security Administration. And to tell you the truth, I expect that all those entities are going to be bankrupted, and there won't be anything, you know, like I said, blood out of a turnip. But we don't need to worry about that, because we're owed so damn much money, and there are so many, you know, trusts that are already owed to us, that are trusts that were set up one way or another, that we basically don't have to worry about money at all ever again, any of us. Money will become, you know, it will resume its rightful position as a tool to do things. It won't be something that people worry about and suffer over, okay? Those days are very shortly done. And, you know, if you want to start a little business, you want to, you know, do something that's anything, let's put it this way, you'll be able to do anything that isn't harmful, okay? Anything that isn't harmful to the environment or to somebody else's property or to somebody else's life. You'll be able to do anything good. And for most of us, we only want to do good anyhow. So it's not really much of a limitation. And that's coming on so fast that, you know, you're just not going to believe the opportunities and the wonderful different aspects that you will be able to access, and the kind of life you'll be able to live and give to your children. Yeah, I think most of you are going to be just staggered. About a month from now, you'll be looking back and going, well, we crossed through the Red Sea there. we made it over the Rubicon. And, you know, I'm just looking forward to the day when it no longer matters how much money you gave the IRS. It no longer matters. April 15th comes and goes, and it doesn't matter. It's just another day on the calendar. And, you know, you don't have to worry about, you know, where your next meal is coming from, or where your house payment is coming from, or, you know, are you going to be able to pay the electrical bill? All that stuff will go away, and you won't have to worry about your food sources anymore. You won't have to read every ingredient on the ingredients list, because the FDA will finally be doing its job, its intended job. And, you know, life is going to get a lot more pleasant, a lot more healthy, a lot less stressful, and a lot more creative. Because, you know, we've been kept distracted by all these threats and, you know, wars and you know, things that waste our energy and disturb our minds and hearts. And we've been unable to concentrate on the really positive things that we want in our world. And a lot of this has been caused by the doctrine of scarcity, which taught that it was good for people to be poor, and that impoverishment was a virtue. So that's being thrown out the door along with the doctrine of discovery. There are a whole bunch of doctrines that are just going to bite the dust and be no more. And that's going to free people. It's already hitting in Africa. Africa is undergoing a tremendous change right now, where creativity is exploding. All sorts of new technologies and wonderful new developments are coming out of Africa. So that's going to hit here too. And you're all going to be part of it.
Lastly, may I ask, was there an update to, and this is my last comment and question, to the GFG Bank and what's going on? Some details, I yield.
Well, you know, what was it? Back in August of 2021, we were ready to launch, and we got a 4-year setback. So I'm superstitious about saying anything, but we're not waiting for October, folks. And I think that, you know, there's going to be a day in your life when something kind of quiet happens, and it's going to change everything. And it's going to change it forever. And the world will never be the same. And you will not have the worries and the fears and the miseries and the limitations that you've struggled with all your lives. And your children will grow up without those fears and struggles and threats and miseries. They won't have to struggle. They can just follow their hearts and their own interests and live their lives. Okay? The days of the old system are extremely numbered. And I think that you can see from the notice that was given the U.S. Treasury officials that, you know, wherever they are in the world, they're getting the message that, hey, your plausible deniability is gone. That is, you are now on the hook. You are now, anything you do, you're responsible for. And number two, perhaps more importantly, their underwriting is gone. They've been using us as the underwriters of their bankruptcies. So every time that their corporations accrued a whole bunch of debt, they would just go bankrupt, shove that off onto the American public, which we would then have to pay as taxes, right? And so they would spend and spend and spend and spend and spend and congratulate themselves and think that they were very smart, that they were spending all this money and getting kickbacks and payola and everything else, and then shoving the bill for it off on the American public when they went bankrupt, see? That's how they were offloading their debts on us. Well, that's coming to a screeching halt. And so instead of them spending your money and then charging you for the gift of your money and expecting you to pay for their bankruptcy and, you know, basically stealing from you 3 times, right? All this is coming to a halt. And instead of them spending your money, you get to spend your money. So it's going to be a different world, and it's going to be your money. It's going to be your gold-backed currency. It's going to be your prepaid credit, and they can't say a damn thing about either one of those things. See, they've been holding their ownership of the Federal Reserve note and their ownership of the US dollar as a club over your head. They've been charging you for the privilege of using their money, even though they've been issuing that money on your ticket and under your name. Okay? These guys, these are really big time swindlers in nice suits. And they've gotten away with this for generations. And everybody's kind of, you know, drawn a blank when anybody says bank. It's as if this shroud comes down and, you know, a gray atmosphere comes over the word bank. And, you know, we've had all this respect for bankers. We shouldn't have respected them. We should have arrested them a long time ago. But we're now at a point where we're going to have our own gold asset-backed currency, and we're going to have our own prepaid credit. And it's through the prepaid credit that you'll get return of all the money that you spent on IRS and Social Security and all that other stuff. You see, you won't need you won't need Social Security. You won't be limited by Medicaid or Medicare. You won't need to get your money back from the IRS because you already earn so darn much credit. I mean, you actually earn 3 times the credit at least on every single transaction from 1913 to today, over 100 years. Every transaction that every man or woman made, and it's not just in this country, it's all over the world. So you're going to have vast resources of prepaid credit. You're going to have very substantial assets of gold-backed currency, which you own. It's your currency. You know, it's being published and it's being issued by your government. So they can't steal the signorage on it. They can't use that as a club over you. They can't pretend that you're dependent on them. All that stuff is going way far away, and it's never coming back again, because by the time this is over, everybody's going to understand exactly how they were defrauded, when they were defrauded, what means were used to defraud and denigrate you, who stole from you, how did they steal from you, you know? When did securitization of living flesh become allowable? And the answer to that is surprisingly recent. Most of the really bad stuff that we've seen either started a long, long time ago, like the Internal Revenue Service was the Inquisition of the Roman Catholic Church back in the 1100s, and it just sort of morphed into what it is today. So it either started a long, long time ago, or it started very recently within the last 20, 25 years. Because when they decided to go criminal and to not meet with Julius in 2005 is about when things got really seriously criminal. And that's when they started doing a blanket, they started securitizing living flesh. They literally started to claim that they owned you as slaves and that they could do anything they wanted to do to you. They could poison you, they could dissect you, they could do this, they could do that. They were making all these claims, filthy, dirty claims in commerce, and they were getting away with it. And, you know, just complete lawlessness, no sense, no common sense, no decency. And it's been this way for about 20 years. If you want to say September 2005, which was the date when they were supposed to renegotiate with Julius, a date that came and went, and they didn't show up at the bargaining table. From there to today, the criminality has exponentially increased, as you can observe yourselves if you look back. Something really bad got started in 2001 with the Bush administration and the Twin Towers evaporation. Okay, that was one really bad starting point that was very criminal too. And then after that, the meeting with Julius that they just didn't show up for, and everything that has gone on since then, securitizing living flesh, the plot to turn everybody into a transhuman by, lying to them and getting them to quote unquote voluntarily accept the COVID-19 shot. All these really ugly things that have happened in the 20 years since are indicative of just how rapidly things turned criminal after 2001, and then again in 2005. And they went through and they created all these so-called legacy trusts and historical trusts and trusts of trusts that nobody ever approved, nobody created. They just arbitrarily said, well, we're going to set this aside in a state trust or a, whatever. They're going to do this, and they're going to take your money, your assets, and control them, and leave you on the street, leave you on Skid Row. And it's just par for the course. If you saw that little snippet I sent out of the congresswoman, and I forget which congresswoman it was, but who came forward and said, we've spent $66 billion whining and dining illegal aliens and $3 billion on our veterans. Think about that. That stuff is coming to a screeching halt because of what we're doing, because of what Mr. Trump is doing, because of what people all over the world are doing to put an end to it. And the first thing is to become aware of it, to know this stuff, to be able to tell your neighbor, to, grab your best friend and say, do you know that they spent $6 billion with a B dollars whining and dining all these illegal aliens and giving them businesses and cars and 5-star hotel suites and credit cards with $20,000 a month to spend? Yeah. And you know how much they gave our veterans? People who put their lives on the line, at least in good faith. I mean, they didn't know that they were being used as cheap mercenaries, but they put their lives on the line in good faith, and they get $3 billion. And a lot of them are homeless. A lot of them have, lasting injuries. A lot of them have problems because of their service. And they're just being passed over, ignored. The only time that anybody really does anything for them in Congress is to pander and use words, not actually any kind of any kind of real help for their problems that they have as a result of their service. So, folks, all that's going to change. And when it changes, it may not seem like, you know, a thunderclap. It may seem kind of anticlimactic, but you're going to look back on it and you're going to realize that, hey, that was the thunderclap. And this is a whole new life. And it's a whole new world. You're going to love it.
Amazing. Yeah. We just need to, I put this in the chat and I think a lot of people agree. I think you would agree, Anna. We have to imagine it's already done. We have to imagine that the money is here, the prepaid credit is here, and that we can begin to do the work that we really came here to do. And imagine it so, all the things that we're going to be able to do. And also, I wanted to touch on one of the things you said about veterans. I learned a couple of years ago that at UCLA, allegedly, they were doing drug experimentation on the willing veterans. They were volunteering to help with testing drugs that would kick drug addiction. And so part of the experiment was that they had to get them addicted to, meth and crack and these highly, highly addictive drugs. And the experiments didn't work. They couldn't kick the habits. And so they left them out on the streets with their addictions. And it was such a bummer because they were doing it because they wanted to help Americans to have access to not getting addicted to these terrible, terrible drugs. So I'm actually going to drop a link into the chat for people to watch this video. A veteran that told this great story about it, trying to expose what they were doing at the research university. Anyhow, you've got one more, Anna. You want to take one more question?
One more.
All right. This is the last question. Go ahead, iPhone 4. What's your name? Oh, you're muted. You need to unmute.
I wish I could mute my cat.
It's funny. We can't hear your cat. You must have a really great microphone that kind of drowns out background noise.
If I may, this is Maziel on Orange. That's John Grady from Seminole. He's trying to unmute his phone. One second.
Thank you, Maziel.
You're welcome.
John, I'm assuming you're on an iPhone because it says iPhone 4. If you tap your screen, it'll, just touch it, it'll illuminate the menu. And it should be on the bottom far left. It looks like a little itty bitty microphone. And if you touch that, it'll give you the opportunity to unmute. Is it not working? What if I go like this? If I click this button, it says it's going to send you like an ask you to unmute. Does that pop up something on your screen?
Yes, that works.
Yay. Okay, go ahead, John.
I'm new at this game. John Grady on Seminole County, Florida. And this is my first time to talk, but I do prison ministry in the state of Florida. I've been doing this over 12 years. I've actually got some guys inside that have papered up years ago. And the state has frozen all the stuff that these guys can do. And it's very interesting. That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to learn all this. I want to help those guys. But even if we could try to get them set up in the banks or anything, because they can't get outside internet and all the access. And if families would try to help them, they would cut them off. I wish there was a way we could do that. I'm just putting that out there for you because I do know some guys that have, and they've not been very successful because they're not going to get a lot of help inside the system of a prison. So I just wanted to say that and share that. And I'm so certainly open to any kind of ideas that somebody would have because that's part of why I'm involved. I do want to help these people. And I yield.
Amen. Amen. You know, there are more Americans in prison per capita than any other developed nation. And
yes.
A lot of those people are in jail for things that are thought crimes or white collar crimes that didn't really hurt anybody. You know, tax evasion, marijuana, things like that.
Yes, ma'am.
They shouldn't even be there. They shouldn't be in jail for it.
Well, the Florida Department of Corrections is the third largest employer in the state of Florida, if that tells you anything. So
right.
it's quite an interesting system.
Yep, we call it prisons for profit. And guess
yes,
what?
ma'am. That's exactly what it is.
Our plan is to release all nonviolent criminals, quote unquote criminals, because they're not criminals in our system. They're not criminals under our law. Our plan is to release all those people and fill up the prisons with a different clientele entirely.
Yes, ma'am. Well, that's my prayer, Anna. And that's what I do almost every day of the week. Go into prisons and try to minister to these men. And sometimes my wife and I have a chance to go into the women's prison. But I just wanted to say they would have a hard time the way it's set up now. But I'm hoping some way that we can break that. And if they try to shut it down, we can stop them from doing that. So thank you for all your hard work. Like I said, I'm new, I'm learning. But when you talked about the prison system, I do have experience in that.
Well, I would like to see people like you who have kind of a ministry to the prison, who feel the calling to help those who are cut off and desperate and alone and afraid, to spread the word and to come up with, we need programs for when they are released, which may be sooner than they think, so that when they're released, they have a welcoming situation where they can walk out, they can get papered up, they can get an account, they can get food and clothing, a place to stay right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a lot of experience, unfortunately, of picking up political prisoners. I told you what happened with Chief Fast Horse. They let him go and released him in the middle of a snowstorm with nothing and nobody. You know, wearing clothes that were 3 sizes too big for him, and slippers, just slippers without even any tread or anything on them. Size 13 slippers on size 10 feet.
I understand. I had one of the men that I've been working with got released, sent to Philadelphia, put him on a bus, didn't give him one dime. And I understand that. It is sad. And I see probably over 100 men a week. I'm in 7 different prisons, and my heart breaks. All I can do is encourage them. But when you see God's miracle working in these men, it's just powerful. So I go in to be a blessing. I walk out being blessed, and that's how powerful our God is. And so my heart's desire is when we get some money, I want to have a home for these people. I don't want them being in a drug neighborhood. I don't want them being in a prostitution area. I have them in some property where they really have a healthy opportunity to do the right thing, because the system sets them up to fail even in a lot of these rehab facilities. And I actually lived in one for 9 months just to see what it was like. And unless you're really strong, you're not going to make it.
Well, and that's it. Environment counts. Opportunities count. And
yes, ma'am.
You know, these are things that we as a community, because remember, this is a community government.
Yes, ma'am.
We can make choices about what we do with our money, and we can start spending our money on our people and, you know, making these kinds of programs reality and making changes in lives for the good, you know. I see lots of opportunities where we can do a far better job of assisting prisoners and making the transition back to normal life. to gaining an understanding of what happened to them. I think a lot of these people, they do something that really didn't harm anybody, and they're put in with rapists and serial killers.
Yes, ma'am. I see it every day, and it's heartbreaking because those poor guys are not prepared for what really goes on inside a prison. And I hear the stories, and I've seen some of it actually happen. It's a wicked system.
It's a wicked system, and
yes, ma'am.
It's something that should not be tolerated by a modern society. And certainly our guys that are getting out of these situations, they have been traumatized, they've been hurt, they've been harmed, and they need help. And
yes, ma'am.
We should be there for them, and we should have good, solid programs led by people like you who know, what they've been through and have answers for what they need. And just to build those things and, pass the word and make sure that when they walk out that door, there's somebody waiting for them.
Yes, ma'am. That's my heart's desire. That's what I want to do. So I'm looking forward to when we have the opportunity to do that.
Well, you just get your information to me, your contact information, and that is definitely on my list. It's already on my list, but I need to fill that list with people who, like you, feel this as a calling and a mission, and who have experience and who have insight in order to, conceptualize the programs and do the dream work to make it a reality.
Well, ma'am, I will see. I'll get your contact information, and I will be more than blessed to be able to have contact with you. And if you have questions about the prison system in Florida, I think I can help you.
Well, unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience of the big joke around here is if you're not a federal felon, you're nobody in the patriot community.
I like that. I like that.
And
yes, ma'am.
Some guys I'm associated with, like Chief Fast Horse, spent the majority of their lives in prison because they refused to put up with the criminality and the the way things were. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So
yes, ma'am.
There are some real heroes who are multi-felons, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
There are people out there that don't realize the suffering that so many men have gone through, and women too.
Yes, ma'am. That's true.
We're going to have to address this and do so powerfully and effectively. And another area is when it comes time for us to die, we deserve to have a place that's safe, welcoming, clean, pleasant, beautiful. We need hospice service in this country, and that's another area where we can weigh in and we can make that difference for the people that are dying, but also for the families who are their caregivers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Would you be okay if I offered a prayer up for you tonight? You're a special lady, and this is the first time I've even thought about even having the privilege to talk with you. But this prison thing's, that's my heart. That's my life. My wife and I both do this together every week. So if you're okay, I'd like to pray over you.
Well, by all means.
Father, Lord, we just humbly come before you. And I thank you for your precious daughter, Anna. And Lord, I listen to all the things that she has to deal with each and every day. Thank you for the mind that you've given her. But more importantly, thank you for supernatural strength, that she has that spirit to succeed no matter what comes against her. And we just come against the gates of hell because she's serving you, the creator of all of us. And you've given her a will and a desire, a skill set and the ability to stand tall in the midst of a war. And Lord, I just pray that your warring angels continue to protect her and her family. Father, that she will be able to see her dream come true. But Father, no matter what, if we're serving you and we don't see it, we know that you've used us for a purpose to help others. And at the end of the day, as Anna does always, she gives you the glory, Father. And that's what this is all about. And I thank you for her life. Thank you for what she represents. It's certainly a privilege for me as a newbie to be able to experience a phone call like this tonight. And I just give you praise and glory in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Yeah, it is, and it continues to be a very challenging mission to bring this country back to its roots and to educate Americans about America. This is our mission. It's our common mission. And, you know, people talk about my dreams. My dream is to see your dreams come true. My dream is to see America as it should be for everybody. And so if we all work together, that's within our grasp. And we just need to kind of get past all the fear and indoctrination and assumptions and start dreaming, start thinking of the world that we want and making that the reality.
Well, you know, you said something about fear, and this fascinates me to hear that word, because in the world it says false evidence appearing real. But you know, when you read Proverbs, it says the fear of the Lord's the beginning of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And the same word fear, Father's eternal, awesome relationship. So that's the fear that we need to walk in. And thank you, ma'am, for what you do. And thank you for allowing me to have this time to talk with you tonight. It's a blessing.
Thank you for what you're doing out there in the front lines. And we'll try to get more help to you soon.
Thank you, Michelle, for letting me talk too tonight, ma'am.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here tonight, John. You've really brought a beautiful, you're just emanating a bunch of love. And so I want to say thank you, sir. Not sir, sorry. Thank you, John, for being here tonight.
It's a privilege.
God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you.
Yeah, we could feel your heart. You're amazing.
Thank you. I don't know how to get my hand down. So
that's all right. We're wrapping it up. Thank you, John.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Anna.
We got there. Woohoo!
We did. Good job. Thank you, Anna.
All right, guys. Everybody, have a wonderful week ahead. Don't be afraid of anything. Don't worry over much about anything. And, you know, just keep centered on the world that you want to see happen and, you know, what you have in your hearts. And let that grow and let that be. If other people want to hate and gossip and be mean to each other, just go on your way. Don't let that affect you. You know, if you hear ugly gossip, just take people aside and say, look, you know, that's not what we're about. That's not what we want. That's you know, part of the old world, the dog-eat-dog world, the world of everything being a competition for limited resources. We don't have to do that anymore. We're in a different world.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Anna, how's your assembly doing? How's Alaska doing?
Well, it's had its ups and downs. Our stalwart coordinator semi-retired, you know. Down to the point like I am that, you know, beginning to think, well, you know, I'm only going to be on this earth for so long. I better take some time out for me and my husband, right?
Amen.
So we have a new coordinator who is on the training here tonight. And
cool.
We have some really good people. We're kind of spread out all over the place. Alaska's a very big state physically and very small population, less than 1 million people here. And if anything, I think our population has dwindled because a lot of the major industries and stuff have been pretty shut down.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that we are doing pretty well. We've got a few real concerns about the way some of our people are, I guess I could say, targeted. And maybe it's to an extent because of me being here, which isn't fair to them at all. You know, the Federation business keeps me so damn busy, especially during this build up to the bank opening. This has been like doing 3 jobs at once, and then my husband's been sick and all of that. But to tell you the truth, I haven't been able to keep up very well with what's going on in my own state assembly.
Well, I just wanted to ask you, you know, you know, I don't know if nobody asked you how you're doing, you know. That's all. I yield.
Thank you. All right, guys. I'll see you next week. If you see any way to help, if you get, you know, a blessing of an extra shekel or 2, send it to us because we're really operating on vapors here now. As you know, most of the people in the Federation are in their late 70s, early 80s, mid-late to 80s. And so we've suffered a couple of deaths, and that's very sad and very kind of, you really miss those helping hands and smiles. And we've had quite a few people that have had illnesses, and we've all been trying to kind of pitch in and make sure that our elders are taken care of. So it's been taking a lot out of us in terms of our energy and time, and yet it's something that we deeply feel it's something that we have to do. And so hopefully we'll see some big changes soon, and a lot of the struggle that we've gone through in the past will be gone, both individually and for our institution. But right now, we're about as far down as I've ever seen it. And so we're really scraping bottom in terms of the old system FRN. But anyway, just since you asked how it's going, for me personally, it's a tremendously hard time with a tremendous amount of work. And the loss of some of the people that have been stalwart supports for years, and inspirations and sources of help and information and everything else have been lost the last couple of weeks. So we're feeling that loss. And we're dealing with other members of the Federation arriving at points in their lives where they need nursing care, they need help to buy groceries, they are struggling with medical decisions that they need assistance doing research on so that they know, you know, they have the whole picture and they can make good decisions. Just lots of aspects of the Federation are driven by the age of our membership. as I've told you before, I'm one of the youngest. And I should have retired years ago. So, anyway, that's life in the Federation. And I suspect that, you know, people who are drawn to the Federation work are just naturally going to be people that have experience in government and in industry at a high level, and who kind of join our cadre after retirement. You know, it's like there's a reason why there are so many Federation people that are in, you know, like me, should have retired years ago, right? And so I think that we need to get more young people involved earlier in their lives so that they develop the skills and develop the information over time. But for right now, we're sailing our old wooden ship of state with a crew of octogenarians, with all that that means in terms of the benefits of age and kindness and humility and humor, and all of the losses that also implies at this point, because a lot of them have health problems, and when we have regular losses through death. So anyway, that's the report on the Federation side. We're existing on vapor right now. We've lost 2 of our members, our beloved members, and we've got a bunch of others hurting. And we've got the biggest workload we've ever had in our lives. We got the bank coming down. We got all these diplomatic issues that have to be resolved. We've got all these recoupment and restitution actions where we're claiming back our assets and our credit. It's a lot, but we're still here, and we're just stupid enough not to give up, right?
Well, you can't give up now. Absolutely. No, you've gone so far and brought all of these people, all of us with you, and many more around the world. So, yeah. And, you know, we don't even know all the things you've done, Anna. You know, you are so selfless and so dedicated and so giving of your knowledge and time, and there's nothing that we could actually do that would come close to properly paying you for what you've done. You've given up a big chunk of your life in service of humanity. And I don't mean that in the wrong sense. I really do mean like everybody. And you're going to go down in the history books as being an absolute hero. And James too. I know he has done so much as well.
And the big irony is that we never, ever, ever anticipated doing any of this. You know, but, you know, in terms of what you can do to pay me back, when that certain time of life comes around, that kind of golden splendor, when you're looking around and you realize all the blessings you've had, then when that call comes, say yes. Step up. Join the Federation. Be part of that honorable crew that brought us through 160 years.
Wow.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Well, y'all take care. Y'all have a wonderful week. Remember, living well is the best revenge.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
We love you, Anna. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Michelle. Love you guys.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Love you all.
Yeah. God bless everyone.
Michelle. Thank you, Anna. Michelle.
Job.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you to Johnny, who put some of the ways that Anna could receive donations into the chat. So please grab those. And thank you all for being here tonight. We'll see you next week. And God bless you. Thank you,
Michelle.
everybody.
Thanks,
Anna.
God bless you too.
Yeah, is John in Florida still here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, at 10:28 your time in the chat, I put my email.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Good night,
you.
everybody. God bless
Everybody
you.
be blessed.
Talk to you Saturday.
Thank you, Michelle. I sent you an email.
Thank you, Mike.